Ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to witness might shock, horrify, and ultimately violate you. The story told here tonight took the life of one reviewer. I caution you not to repeat the process, as you might end up with the same fate. Heed my warning as we enter the Chuck shit zone. But first, a word from our sponsors. That's right, Chucky Boy's got a sponsor. I'm moving up in the world, guys. Thanks to you. The Ridge is a company that's making everyday products like wallets, phone cases, backpacks, portable chargers, modernizing them and perfecting them all for us. I decided to snag me a phone case and a wallet. Gotta say, I love the clean cut packaging of these things. Opening it just makes you feel very sophisticated, but the actual phone case is quite beautiful. A nice clean cut glossy leather. Also loving the fact that it's a card holder. Lets me carry around a picture of my son right there. Yeah, I know. He's a little hairy. But if you don't help out with the sponsor, he starves. But the thing I was most excited for was the actual wallet, their mainstay. I used to be the type to carry around these fat wallets, but all they do was make my butt sore and lumpy. Let's me even have a little money clip. Look, I know there's a dollar bill in there. The sponsorship money hasn't come in yet. Guys, help me out. So please go ahead and check out Ridge at ridge.com/3cfilms. If you use my promo code 3cfilms at checkout, you're gonna get 10% off plus free shipping worldwide. As an added bonus, since they are the first sponsor of my channel, anyone who DMs me on Twitter at 3cfilmreview, their proof of purchase, I'm gonna select 3 individuals and I'll buy your tickets for Child's Play opening night for any showtime of your pleasing.
Now it's time to play.
Thank you guys so much for enduring with that sponsor ad, but now getting to the video, Seed of Chucky, believe it or not, actually holds a special place in my heart for a few reasons. The movie was going to come out in 2004. By that time, I would have been 9 years old. The reason Seed of Chucky to me is so memorable and engraved in my heart is because I distinctly remember this being the movie that led me to the path of where I am today on YouTube. I remember being at my cousin's, messing around, playing games, and then looking over at the TV, and a TV spot for Seed of Chucky appeared. I immediately stopped what I was doing. I stayed glued on and I thought, whoa, I have to see that. And this was also in the time when we had the internet and I just recently got a computer, so every day, no joke, until this movie came out, I was Googling Seed of Chucky and digesting every bit of news. From the posters to the name change of the movie that was originally supposed to be Son of Chucky, to begging my parents to let me go see it even though it was wildly inappropriate for a kid of my age to see, especially when some of the posters basically had a sperm in them. And after 2004, when the movie came out, it was the first time I realized a movie can suck balls. So before going ahead and hitting play with Seed of Chucky, let me know what you guys thought about it. Obviously, it's not gonna be pretty things, but if you are a fan of this movie, all respect to you. I'm very happy you like this incarnation of Chucky. It just did not do the trick for me, kind of turned me away from the character a little bit, but I have all respect in the world for people who actually enjoy this movie. So the movie opens up with, believe it or not, a scene from Bride of Chucky. Quite literally the climax of the movie, Chucky dropping a load inside Tiffany. What an elegant way to start this movie off. I mean, to me, Chucky has had one of the best openings in horror movies for a long time, always starting up with scenes of how this person comes back to life, either being built in a factory, remolded by some workers, or stitched together by the beautiful Jennifer Tilly. In this one, we get to see how babies are made. At least now I know how I'm gonna explain it to my child when they ask me how babies are made. Daddy, how do you make a baby? Honey, where's the Seed of Chucky DVD? Junior's got some questions. But even obviously seeing this as a 9-year-old, I had no idea what was actually going on. I thought, is this a butthole? What is this? Quickly getting over that with actually what I thought is a great opening for this movie. A random family receiving a gift, the little girl taking one look at it and saying,
"That's the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my whole life."
Oh, she must have got a copy of Seed of Chucky for her birthday. Shame. And it's something we are familiar with, a POV shot of the killer doll doing its bidding, but in a way, it's kind of like one long take killing several people. One good tally for Seed of Chucky, because I actually love this opening. Sadly, it's just a dream by the character of Glenn, or as he's known for part of this movie, Shitface. And I do have a back and forth with the character of Glenn. I think there's nothing against him now. I actually enjoy him and wouldn't mind seeing him in future things that might pop up in the original Child's Play series. The flipping of expectations that he's actually a lovable person who wants nothing but to find his parents and be in a happy family, cool, but they just do so many weird things. Like, one, contriving the situation that this man found him and then brought him to the UK solely so he can have a British accent. Not to mention his most common trait is the fact that he pisses his pants. You're pissing your pants.
You're pissing your pants. You're pissing
We all were saying that as a kid. I kind of like that line though. It's like this movie didn't want you to like him. From there, we get a look at what Chucky and Tiffany are currently at. They have been restored from the cemetery of the end of Bride of Chucky to be used in a live action interpretation of their legendary story. Enter in Jennifer Tilly, who is playing a version of herself, and I'm gonna say another good thing about this movie. Look at that. We got 2 things so far. That's more than I expected. Hats off to her, man, because this movie really shits on her so much. I don't know if this was Don Mancini writing in thinking, she'll be okay with it. But the movie hammers in so many shots at her, and Jennifer Tilly just goes along with it. Jokes about her career not being good, embracing the slut-shaming figure that some people think she is just because of the way she acts and talks. Good for you, Jennifer Tilly, for being able to take a joke and playing along with this diabolical of a film. Part of the plot is Jennifer Tilly struggling to make it in Hollywood. She hears about an upcoming project for a role opening as the Virgin Mary and tells her assistant to jump on it because she wants that. Enter in the character of Redman, who will be directing this Virgin Mary biopic. You know, I've never really heard his music. Let me check some of that out real quick. So violent. Unfortunately, Redman informs Tilly that she is not good for the part and he's gonna give it to someone else. Tilly then decides to offer fellatio for a role in the movie. Pretty crazy that Don Mancini wrote this part for Quentin Tarantino. Can you imagine seeing Seed of Chucky with Quentin Tarantino in this? It kind of would have made the plot of the fake movie they're making in here a lot more sense. A biopic of Virgin Mary that's also a rap musical. That's some shit I could see Quentin Tarantino doing. Cutting back to Glenn, after he sees his parents on TV promoting their upcoming movie, he heads off to Hollywood to find them. Turns out at the cemetery, he kept the medallion that Tiffany and Chucky were looking for, saying the beautiful chant to awaken them.
Ade due dambala, awake.
And I actually love this effect that they do with their eyes, bringing them back to life. Real unsettling, but cool.
Tiff?
Chucky?
Who the hell are you?
The thing that kills your franchise, Chucky. The thing that kills your franchise. But cut to something that, again, is another quirk they give to Glenn that I'm like, why? The whole made in Japan thing, and every time it's brought up, they have that sound effect that reminds you of Japan. And to add some sprinkles on top of that, they make him speak Japanese. So let me get this straight. This is a transgender, British-speaking, Japanese-speaking, pacifist, pissin' pants, schizophrenic doll? Man, do you think you added enough layers there, Don Mancini? Talk about developing your characters. But the family reunion is interrupted when one of the workers on the set of this movie comes in to fix Tiffany the doll. You know what? Let's give them another point for this cool effect right here. Who doesn't love to see the bloody insides of that doll? And without hesitating, Chucky and Tiffany go back to work as if they were never dead, taking care of someone, very romantic, sealing it off with a kiss, and Glenn over there just...
You're pissing your pants! You're pissing your pants!
What a quirky character. Chucky and Tiffany, as confused as us, fight on the fact whether it is female or male Glenn. And to what is basically the scariest scene in this movie, them taking off Glenn's pants and showing it to the audience. I'm gonna take a pause right here. I think it is very cool how they included a transgender character in this movie. There's nothing wrong with that. I have no problem with Glenn or Glenda being that. It's actually something nice that they added into the film that doesn't get represented enough. And I've had people comment on my video that that's why they really appreciate Seed of Chucky, because they brought in someone that represents them so they can really identify with this movie. But the thing I hate here after this is the movie switches tones. At first, I thought this was sort of Glenn's movie, where we were seeing it through his eyes, finding out his parents are murderers and what he's gonna do about that. From here, you would think the movie would go on to be Chucky's film, but from here, it actually becomes Tiffany's movie. I kid you not, for the rest of the film, it all basically revolves around Jennifer Tilly and Tiffany. This is basically their film, and Chucky takes a back seat in this one. Not saying that's a bad thing. I love the character of Tiffany too, but when you had another major gap in your story between Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, and everyone's anticipating another Chucky movie, you would kind of hope to have Chucky be main center doing his thing. Real life Jennifer Tilly stumbles across the body that Tiffany and Chucky just took care of, informing the police. Traumatized, of course, she is rushed home by her driver, who she also happens to have a romantic relationship with. Not romantic enough, because she is also planning a meeting with Redman to solidify the deal of her being the Virgin Mary. The killer family does decide to tag along in the back of this limousine, revealing further what their plan is for this movie. Tiffany has plans to switch bodies with Jennifer Tilly so she can live out her dream of being a star. Chucky will get Redman's body because we know Chucky has no problem with being a bro. And as for Glenn, they will forcefully inseminate Jennifer Tilly, and whatever gender the baby turns out to be, that's what Glenn will end up being. Once at Jennifer Tilly's house, Tiffany, Chucky, and Glenn make themselves at home in the attic. That's of course after they snuggle buggle their little Glenn boy. And I actually kind of love this shot right here of Chucky just standing over the crib, tapping the knife on it. You imagine this being your dad who reads you a bedtime story? There were 3 little bears and I killed them all. The end. And like I said, there's a lot to hate in Seed of Chucky, but there's actually few lines in this movie that intrigue me and go, man, I wish you would expand on that. Because here we have Glenn asking them, why do they kill? And if he will become a killer also.
Of course, it's been a family tradition for generations.
Man, wouldn't that be fascinating to find out Chucky's childhood and what happened to him and this tradition in his family? It would be so cool to find out what this whole generation of killers is.
But violence is bad, isn't it?
Not violence. Violins. Violins are bad.
Okay, that was a good joke. That was a good joke, Chucky. All right, there's another point for you. But Tiffany, now with a child, decides to take this seriously and to give up the murder life, which is again all part of the story arc of Tiffany in this movie. Because like I said, she kind of takes center stage of this film, and she struggles with her battles of I'm a killer, but I don't want to be because I got a loving child. Cutting back to Jennifer Tilly as she prepares for her meeting with Redman. Of course, him handling the situation like a gentleman.
That you was my virgin.
Now I see why his music is so violent. That is, of course, until Tiffany comes in to save her idol.
You should be ashamed of yourself. Where's your self-respect? You know what my mother used to say about dirty girls? You can always smell it on girls who sell it. By the way, Miss Tilly, can I have your autograph? I'm a big fan.
Oh, how rude. She didn't even give her an autograph? As the two are now knocked out, they must go upstairs and prepare them for the artificial insemination.
Fuck, she's fat.
Again, a plot to Jennifer Tilly. She's really being a sport for this movie. And now that they're in place for it, Chucky must now provide his sample for the artificial insemination. I wonder how that's gonna... No. No. No! Jeez almighty, you created a horror icon. You created someone I was afraid of. If I saw this doll in the middle of the night, I would piss my pants. I'm pissing my pants. And I get that this is supposed to be a comedy, but to take it to 1,000 and show us this. I can only imagine what Brad Dourif was thinking in the sound booth recording his lines for this movie. Alright, so it says here, Chucky will then masturbate to a magazine of Fangoria. What the fuck, Don? You want me to just make masturbation sounds? I'm too good for this. I'm gonna go make Halloween too. At least there was someone enjoying the show. A paparazzi who has been on Jennifer Tilly's butt the entire movie was taking photos of everything going on. Chucky realizes this and decides to make it a little boys' night out to go take care of that problem. As they go off and do that, Tiffany will take Chucky's hot load and shove it into Jennifer Tilly.
Oh, it is so beautiful.
Oh. I didn't know this movie was in 3D. Why is there so much sperm in this movie? As Chucky and Glenn go off to find this paparazzi scum, they run into someone on the road. But who could it be?
It's Britney, bitch.
Oops, I did it again.
But I thought it was pretty funny how in the trailers they had to put out a disclaimer that Britney Spears is not in this movie. Look, Don, if you're watching this and you ever want to kill Chucky Boy on your future stuff, feel free to do it. You have my permission. Just hire someone thinner, Don. Make me look good out there. As the paparazzi is developing the photos, he's realizing it's the same killer doll that is right behind him. Chucky attempts to go in for the kill, but Glenn decides to try and save the man, undoubtedly though giving us the best kill scene in this movie. That's one thing you do have to appreciate. Shitty Chucky movie, good Chucky movie, at least the effects are nice and the kills are gory. Chucky, of course, being so proud of his son, decides to want to take a photo of their first kill, and my god, again, I kind of like that. That's kind of sweet. That's something I would see Chucky doing. Who wouldn't want to remember that moment if you're a killer? The next day, Tiffany decides to continue on her 12 steps of recovery from getting over being a murderer, and calls the wife of the detective from Bride of Chucky.
A few years ago, I killed your husband. And I am so very, very sorry.
Jennifer Tilly that same day goes on to inform Redman that it turns out she's pregnant. This is only confusing to Redman as he's gotten a vasectomy as soon as he got famous. Tiffany, however, relapses, just not loving the personality of Redman, and goes after his guts. Glenn does witness the murder and decides to twitch out. Cutting to Tiffany and Chucky being in bed like a young couple, but of course, like any man hearing his woman's stories, Chucky goes,
I don't think I could take 9 months of this shit.
and that's something I mentioned in my previous review with Bride of Chucky. Whenever Don Mancini just wants to explain something real quick, his get out of jail free card, it's voodoo.
It's a voodoo pregnancy. It's accelerated.
At this point, sure, why not? Can voodoo cure this movie? No? Okay, alright. But with this accelerated pregnancy, the baby is almost due, so it's time for Tiffany to get strapped up and ready for birth. Not before Chucky and Tiffany having a little domestic dispute about them going off killing people behind their backs. Chucky was supposed to be a bro, but now that he's out of the picture, they decide to put the driver in the passenger seat instead. See what I did there? Because he's a driver, passenger. You guys appreciate my comedy. Before they can continue on with their ritual, the assistant of Jennifer Tilly decides to drop by because she has not heard from her in a while. Of course, this being a problem, one of them decides to take care of it right away. The twist here is that it was neither Tiffany or Chucky. Glenda herself has decided to appear and take care of the assistant. Now here's where I'm going to pause it for just a bit, and I want to say I'm choosing my words carefully because I don't want to offend anybody. This is the interesting part of this film that I actually did not notice until I'm watching it now. From what I'm understanding in this movie, it looks not like Glenn or Glenda is transgender. But in fact, what they're hinting at is that two people are living within the same body.
Looks like you win after all, Tiff.
Oh, you both win. I'm a real lady killer. I'm a bona fide bonus baby.
At one point in this movie, Glenn goes on to say, sometimes I feel like a boy, sometimes I feel like a girl. The real revelation of the movie was that the dreams he's having and the impulses to be evil is his other side, Glenda, that is filled with rage like Chucky and just wants to murder, murder, murder. And then his split personality, Glenn, is the kind-hearted soul who could do without all that. Not trying to take anything away from the gender-neutral character, but from what it seems like, Glenn is more schizophrenic than sexually unidentified. But you know what? That's kind of cool. A Jekyll and Hyde situation of a character, why couldn't that be explored more into this movie? Maybe when he's hanging around with Chucky, he was all in for the killing, but around Tiffany, he was acting like a good guy, and then have this shocking reveal by the end that there's two people living within this doll. You know what? That turns the character amazing to me, and I would love to see a film about that. So if anybody dared to see Seed of Chucky again, one, I'm sorry you had to do that, but two, do you see the same thing I do, or am I just making this up? Once this is all sorted out and we find out that the couple ended up having twins, a boy and a girl, Tiffany even furtherly goes on to mention that they could perhaps split Glenda's soul into each one of the babies.
Wait, Chucky. We have a son and a daughter, Glenn and Glenda. Don't you get it? Maybe they don't have to choose.
I think that kind of backs up more what I was saying. And then to me, the only redeeming quality of the movie is this speech.
What's so great about being human anyway? You get sick. You get old. You can't get it up anymore. I'm not looking forward to that. And I don't want to be your chauffeur. As a doll, I'm fucking infamous. I'm one of the most notorious slashers in history. And I don't want to give that up. I am Chucky, the killer doll. And I dig it.
That right there, as a Chucky fan going through the horrible hour, 10 minutes so far of this movie and just being disappointed after joke, horrible thing after horrible thing, that line right there sort of made me smile when in the theater seeing this movie. Because in essence, that is what we've loved Chucky to be, and him trying to leave that body, kind of something we don't want to see. We want him to stay as Chucky the killer doll. And the fact that now he's fully embracing that and wants to stick to that, it's the only quotable part of this movie that I just like. But unfortunately, Tiffany decides that this is just where we disagree, Chucky, and again, they dispute.
Nobody leaves me. Nobody.
In the heat of this argument, the driver is killed off, and the police arrive taking Jennifer Tilly to the hospital. Of course, Tiffany and Glenn follow along because they have a plan to switch into some bodies, and who else would be there but Chucky himself?
I can't think of a thing to say.
I don't see how that was a good idea. In entering though, Tiffany does perform the Damballa switch, saying one last goodbye to her son.
Don't make the same mistakes your mom and dad made.
leading to, I can't believe this is actually a thing, a kung fu Japanese fight with Glenn and Chucky. I thought Chucky plastic tugging was enough, but this, what movie is this at this point? Can you imagine being in the theater, seeing everything that's happening and go, now there's a Japanese fight? The CGI and animatronic work that went into this to make it possible. God, man. I'm trying here. Of course, since Glenn is a purple belt, he succeeds, cutting off each limb of Chucky, making his daddy proud.
Atta boy, kid. Atta boy.
Cutting to now 5 years later at a party where Tiffany has taken over the life of Jennifer Tilly. Glenn's soul has been split into two bodies, Glenn and Glenda. And say what you will, I am desperately wanting to know what is going on with Glenda because she sounds fascinating. A female embodiment of Chucky without the beautiful charm of Tiffany. You know what? I kind of want to see her go on this murder rampage in school, or hell, if she has a crush on someone at school, what she's willing to do for them. I really hope they're touched upon in the television series. But in true fashion, it's ended with Glenn receiving Chucky's limb and him pissing his pants. Seed of Chucky was a complete disaster, an utter disappointment. It's what made Chucky leave theaters and end up going straight to DVD. Again, I have nothing but love for Don Mancini, but to this day, if he even wants to hint at Glenn or Glenda, Universal tells him, nope, we're not talking about that, man. I don't care if we're straight to DVD. That was a monstrosity, and it's never being talked about again.
There was one line where she said something, how about she sort of missed Glenn and Glenda, and I kind of liked that moment because it humanized her, and Universal was like, cut that out. They didn't want any mention of Glenn and Glenda in this movie, so they cut it out.
But even with that said, it's still characters you introduced to us, and if the movie was a little different, kind of kept the same vibe as Bride of Chucky, even though I had my ups and downs with that one, I could have ended up loving Seed of Chucky a whole lot more. It's just the way it looks. It doesn't even feel like a horror movie. It feels more like a rom-com. And the very random, unquirky traits you added to some of these characters, not to mention shortest Chucky movie ever made that basically feels like a TV episode. I just wish this movie never had happened. But anyways, guys, what do you think about Seed of Chucky? Are you okay with it? Do you hate it? And if you do, go ahead and leave your thoughts down below. Also, if you like it, would you be willing to see these characters back for the television series? You know what? I would be. Anything and everything, go ahead and leave your thoughts down below. Also, be sure to use promo code 3C Films with our sponsor, Ridge. Really gracious of them to give Chucky Boy some love, so go ahead and show them some love. Also, be sure to like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at 3C Film Review. As always, I'm Chris. Take care.